Wednesday edition of Ask the Expert. I'm Lisa Romaro, and I'm seeing that I'm having a little internet connection problem. So if I lose you, George will have to take over. And I'm here with my partner, George. How you doing, George?
Pretty good, Letitia. How you doing?
I'm doing great. And we are really honored to be joined by two very important guests today. Pam Silvestri, the food editor of the Staten Island Advance. How you doing, Pam?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. And Rob DeLuca of DeLuca's Italian Restaurant, and also the founder of IROAR, which is the Independent Restaurant Association Rescue. And that is the organization that they developed to try and organize the restaurants in these COVID times. So both Pam and Rob have limited time. Pam has about 15 minutes. And so what I'm going to do is shut up a little bit. I'm just going to ask a couple of questions and, let you guys have the floor. But I wanted to start with this. Pam, tell us a little bit about yourself. You had a restaurant already, and you also you grow your own, you have a little farm here on Staten Island. Isn't that true?
I do. We have, we live in West Brighton, and we have chickens and some rabbits, and we, use the rabbit poop for the garden, and they're like little natural factories to, produce that kind of thing, obviously. And also we have chickens, and we try to bring it on home for the children where the food is coming from. So it kind of all works as an education thing. And we also have a little project where we've been making some grappa, and we're going to dabble in some whiskey at some point, but that's on a small.
If you need testings at any point in time, just let me know.
I got tons of grappa, actually. So we're putting it's in a cask right now, so it's sort of mellowing. But anyway, yeah. So the work for the Advance has been pretty brisk with the restaurants. It's really sad to watch what's happening in the industry. I give people like Rob an enormous amount of credit because in addition to running a restaurant full time and trying to wrap his head around the COVID and how it's affected his staff and supply and demand and customer service and everything. I mean, you're running IROAR, or one of the people running IROAR. I think that's pretty remarkable. I don't know how you do it, frankly. You gotta, and you just got married too. So,
Congratulations, Rob.
Thank you all. Thank you. Yeah, it's not easy playing the juggling act this year, from getting engaged at the beginning of the year and planning a wedding through a pandemic, and then not knowing what was going to happen. So, your personal life's all up in the air. And then you go to the restaurant and, we were forced to close on March 17th. And, to juggle all that, take out delivery, and then adjust to outdoor dining and then back to indoor dining. That roller coaster ride has definitely been fun. And then, yeah, of course, with the beginning of IROAR, which was started by myself, Max Clucio, Allison Marchese, Ted Nugent, Massimo Felice, Peter Marcoloni, a handful of restaurant, owners. And, now we're a group with about 165, 170 restaurants, mostly Staten Island and Brooklyn based, but with a few connections to Manhattan, the Bronx, and Queens. And it's definitely a juggling act. My phone rings nonstop from, the 170 members, attorneys, 35 staff members as well. I mean, it's a lot to deal with, but it's fun. We're having fun with it. That's all.
Well, okay, let me ask both of you. You first, Rob, in a firsthand experience. What would you say that the most challenging situation that you find yourself in as a restaurateur right now? I mean, obviously with COVID, restaurants around the country have had to change the way they do business, right? There's certain new guidelines that are being issued. But in New York City, and maybe just even in Staten Island in general, can you share with the people, our viewers, what is it that you find challenging, and how are you trying to overcome those challenges?
Well, I would say the most challenging thing is the uncertainty. We have a big lack of leadership from our politicians, mostly the mayor and the governor, and they change their mind every day. So I would like to say that business owners, especially restaurateurs, are good at making plans and executing them, and we have to do that daily, with our businesses. But we make a plan, and it's a long-term plan that's meant to develop. But when they tell you they're going to change the rules on Monday, and then you start thinking of, okay, how am I going to adjust? By Wednesday, they give you a new set of rules, and your plans for Monday now don't work anymore because the new rules Wednesday. And then you start making another plan, and Friday they have a whole new set of rules, and it's like you can't. It's very difficult to get started. The restaurant owners, I can say the ones who have been constantly open. They're the ones that are definitely trying to just adapt every single day. And then you have some restaurants who just decided to close. And, whether it just be for a short period of time or, some who are just unfortunately going out of business. It's decision making that it's very hard to make a decision because they change their minds the next day. And, everyone wants to adapt, and some people, they don't want to deal with the constant, rule changing. And I don't blame them. I sit down sometimes and I say, hey, do I really want to do this, or should I just do takeout and delivery until this is over? Or should I, do this until January and then close for 2 or 3 months until this is done, and not do the back and forth? For me, it's just not the way that I am. I got 35 employees who look to me for guidance every day. And I have to be able to provide for them and give them, and try to give them as many jobs as possible. So my idea of staying open is, DeLuca's right now, we're going to stay open throughout this whole winter. We've adjusted. We have tents in the back that fit about 120, 125 people with social distancing. They're heated. They withstood 30-degree temperatures. Today's going to be fun with the snowfall. That's going to be the latest challenge.
God bless you.
I'm pretty sure we're going to have a snowstorm party starting in about 2 hours. I'm just going to tell people half-price drinks as long as you purchase a meal, because His Majesty Governor Cuomo says you have to purchase a meal, to be able to drink alcohol. Come in your snow boots and your jackets and your gloves and your hats.
I bring a shovel to help on the driveway.
Well, I'm 2 blocks from you, and I'll be there. Let me know when that starts.
So Elizabeth Salazzo joined us, and she says a good point to note: the subways are running, but restaurant dining is closed. Doesn't make sense. Also, some of these exterior enclosures are completely sealed. How is it safe? We're also joined by Gina Marie, who says, congratulations on your wedding, Rob. And Tony Herbert is with us, and Tony Herbert is a candidate for public advocate, and he says that you should all keep up the good work. Pam, let me ask you, you have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in Staten Island. How many restaurants do you know of that have permanently closed, that have been with Staten Island for many years, or even newer ones that just couldn't get over the hump?
I'm counting about 30. You have the spaces in transition, like, China Chalet, for instance, they closed down under one ownership and then they reopened again, a couple of months later, just recently in November. But I think, honestly, more so, and to the broader picture here in terms of the restaurant industry, and to just to highlight the importance of it, is how the lack of the indoor dining has disrupted the supply and demand chain. It has literally bucked the economy like up and down. Like, it's not just restaurants that are affected by this; it's the people that they're sourcing from. Like, for instance, farms. Literally in the liquor industry. I mean, the liquor industry is like upside down. Beer distribution. I mean, when we shut down the restaurants in indoor dining the first time around, a lot of brewers had to just throw away their product because it's just, nobody's ordering any kegs, that sort of thing. I mean, it sounds very basic, when you talk it out loud, but I mean, the implications of just one restaurant not being in a neighborhood is enormous. And, a perfect example is it's happening in my neighborhood, in West Brighton. We lost a few restaurants. We lost, I don't know what's going on with Phoenix. They've been closed for a while, but likely reopening. But you have that place empty. You have the Santander Bank on the corner next door to it that is debranded and empty. A little further down in the neighborhood, you have no more pretzel factory, no more Project Brunch, no more special needs cafe and special needs run chocolate company. No more Dwayne Reed. No, I mean, like,
it looks abandoned down there.
Not blocks, but I mean, like, spaces that are empty. And what happens is it's desolate. And it breeds. It doesn't breed anything good, I'll tell you that. And the other day down the block from us, we go to a deli all the time, and guy was robbed. At 4 a.m. Somebody sprayed pepper spray in his face, and they literally, the guy reached over and ripped out the cash register, and ran away with it. But I mean, wow. Yeah, I mean, that's the second or third time I think that the deli's been broken into just this year, since the pandemic. But the point is that, people who are out of work, again, supply and demand and the whole, economic ripple, people out of work, what do they do? What does a person do who's quite frankly undocumented and working in some sort of part of the food industry? Whether it's, not necessarily in a restaurant, but like a farmhand, somebody who is working like a day laborer. There's no work for them. What do? They can't get unemployment insurance. I mean, they're going to, turn to crime and to feed their family, or pulling bottles out of, the garbage and, spreading germs, I mean, like,
right.
The mental health issues. I mean, I can't even imagine having a catering hall right now,
That's such a good point. Like, there is a ripple effect from these restaurants closing that runs into how many business lines? I mean, dozens and dozens of business lines, farmers, local delivery companies, food supply companies. They're all affected. So that was a really good point.
And the restaurant industry supports so many other industries, but they're closed too, like movie theaters and things like that, and hotels. But for Rob. Rob, have you had to lay off workers, or were you able to maintain them through COVID? And how many of your the other members have lost or had to lay off staff because of COVID?
It's when COVID first struck, you had to lay off almost everybody. Because you talk about a restaurant like mine, higher end, fine dining. Mm-hmm. Your bus boys, a lot of them are, some of them are young kids, luckily lived home with their parents, but there's 8 kids out of work from 16 to 19 years old, unless they want to become a delivery driver. The servers who work for me, any of them who had vehicles, they could be delivery drivers. So, half your servers are gone, and maybe 3 or 4 guys can do deliveries. In the kitchen, dishwashers are getting laid off. Your cooks are having their days cut. So it was, not easy. Luckily, when we opened, I have a large outdoor space. I was able to hire everybody back and then some. But now going into where we are now, over the past couple of weeks, where we went into the orange zone in the South Shore and we weren't allowed indoor dining, I went from 35 employees to now we're at 15. Wow. More than half are gone. Yeah. More than half, had to be taken off the schedule. I went from a 9-man kitchen to a 7-man kitchen. But those 7 guys all got their days cut. And as far as the front of the house, we went from having 20 something people. Now I have like 6. So maybe 13, 14 employees are left. And that's now's the holiday season. I should need all 35 of those people. What's good is, a lot of them are able to at least use part time on Friday and Saturday, because Friday and Saturdays are still proving to be busy. Even outdoors, we have that big space, so it's proving to be busy. Takeout and deliveries picking itself up again, so I can start to get some guys back for deliveries. But you talk about, 20, 22 people just lost their job. And I talked to other restaurant owners, this week, and the same thing. You have guys cutting their staff by about anywhere from 50% to as much as 80, 90%, to some guys who have said, I'm done, I'm closing, January 1st, I'm handing over the key.
And all this time you have to pay your rent, you have to pay your commercial rent, your property tax, you have to pay your sales tax, right? There's been no relief from that.
I never stopped paying sales tax. Cuomo told me that I can't. Cuomo told me that I can't have indoor dining, but in a couple of days he's going to ask me for sales tax. I think about 4 days from now, 5 days from now, he's going to ask for my sales tax, numbers. And he should want to. You know what? He should want to have restaurants open, because I could tell you what my sales tax was, which we had a great summer, right? Great summer business.
Right, because you had outdoor.
Here, and now you're going to see with no indoor dining, it's going to be all the way down here. So he needs money, and he was on TV today talking about legalizing sports betting and marijuana to increase sales tax dollars. Well, you just open the restaurants. Just open up.
Go ahead, Pam.
When you look at history, we're not really in any kind of new situation. We're reliving history. My grandmother is 102 years old. She, grew up at the end of the tail end of the last pandemic, and the economy has been up and down, and there have been, cycles. We go in cycles. And this is one of them. Like, think about Prohibition. What happened in Prohibition when you did not have liquor? People figured out a way of, serving it. They had speakeasies. Staten Island was a great place for rum running, as historian Pat Salmon will tell you. The boats would pull up on the North Shore and they'd unload, and there were speakeasies, and there were, that's, what happens with that is that there's no tax base. So, it's just kind of shooting ourselves in the foot there. But going forward, without any kind of financial aid and any kind of, grant program in place with the state, forget about the city, and the federal government, we're just, really shooting ourselves in the foot. We really are. And so, but going forward and asking restaurant owners and whatnot, and people who, have kind of chipped in their opinion. I want to look at a guy named Javante Thompson, who owns a vegan restaurant in Grasmere. He's alarmed about how it's eroded his customer service, because he can't give predictable hours to people. He's literally running around doing pretty much everything himself. And it doesn't bode well for the business, but on the other hand, you have people like Maurizio from Basilio Inn, who says rather than boycott, or rather than open, just close, just shut down for months, because then you won't be paying into the tax system. You're just, you're doing exactly what they want you to do. So, and they can see the implications themselves.
And I think that it's remarkable to me that during this pandemic, we're watching the chain restaurants and the DoorDashes and the Grubhubs and all that, that their businesses are growing, and the small mom and pops are they can't possibly keep up, because they don't have that kind of liquidity in order to, support themselves through all the changes. And that truly scares me. It reminds me of, that show, the movie Demolition Man, when the only restaurants that survived was Taco Bell, and that's all you had left to eat. So Rob, how do you compete? Obviously you're a fine Italian dining, but how do you compete with pizzerias or other Italian fast food that may be able to offer it quicker and cheaper?
So, Letitia, I'm glad you brought up the movie Demolition Man, because I'm an avid Sylvester Stallone fan, and grew up watching every single Stallone movie with my grandfather. And there was a toilet paper crisis, if you remember, in Demolition Man, they used the 3 seashells. Yeah. Let's hope that it does not come to that, because that did not look like it was an interesting. That doesn't look like something we want to go to.
Well, dermabrasion.
And Pam, just to your point, yes, then I was big with speakeasies. 7324 Amboy Road, which is where DeLuca's is right now. It was a bed and breakfast that turned into a speakeasy in the 1920s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have the paperwork from the precinct in my office.
Oh, neat. I'd love to see that. That's a great story.
Yeah, it was a speakeasy, so hopefully time won't have to repeat itself. We don't go into Prohibition again. But as far as competing with the chain restaurants, I'm gonna come out frankly and say it. Mom and pop restaurants food blows away chain restaurants food 9 times out of 10. That's I'm just gonna say it. I'm not even gonna hold anything back. You could throw a dart at a map on Staten Island and randomly hit any spot that there's a mom and pop restaurant, and the food is going to be better than any chain restaurant. As far as pizzerias, most pizzerias on Staten Island are mom and pop places. We know pizzerias as a business model. It's all about, they're going to make their money not on one particular item like a fine dining place is, but they're going to do it in the volume. So It does become difficult to compete with them. I felt that during the original shutdown, the best thing to do, you have to go with the times and go with the trends. When the original shutdown hit, we immediately converted into takeout and delivery mode, and I saw it coming a few days before. Once they started telling us 50% for that weekend, and I said, something's going to happen. I sat down, I made up this curbside pickup and delivery menu, and it modeled what a pizzeria would normally serve, and I'm still serving a lot of my items, but at, a 25% discount. And we did that because a lot of people lost their jobs, and they were able to afford it. And we did very well with that. Once we opened back up for outdoor dining, we went right back to our higher end model. We made it a little bit more casual because you're outside. People are in shorts and a t-shirt. It's 100 degrees in August. You don't want it to be as stuffy. You wanted people to be relaxed and comfortable. And, we did all of our specials again, and people loved it. And the summer was great. And as the winter came, we transitioned more, into our fine dining winter, what we're used to. Now, it's Christmas time. People want those high-end items. Catering is a crazy time of year for me. Like, I'll do 800 trays next week.
Wow. Oh, thank God. That's great.
Food on Christmas Eve.
That's great.
I'll do that, and people are going to want all that stuff. But then coming into January, things are going to change, and people are going to, buckle down. They're going to be in their house. They're going to be, nervous about COVID. They're going to be worried about the weather. And then you may see a transition again where somebody like myself may say, hey, I'm going to be open. I'm going to do takeout and delivery. I'm going to make a special, curbside pickup and delivery menu that models what a pizzeria would do. And I have experience in it. So it was very easy for me to do that again and do that for all my pickup and delivery and keep my heated tents open while still serving, the finer dining things there. This way, have a little bit of both, juggle both. It's not going to be easy, but we hope that it works.
How big of I asked this to Juicy Lucy's owner last show, I think it was last show and the show before.
Yeah, Richie Holmes.
Well, I ran a small restaurant for a couple of years, and I made no money on the food. It wasn't fine dining. It was, mid-range price. And Pam, you gave us a great review. Thank you. Liquor was my money. And it was people staying and sitting and drinking that really was where my profit was made. The food just kept the restaurant doors open and the lights on and the staff paid. Are you finding, I'll ask both of you, Rob, is that the case for you? And Pam, are you hearing similar from other restaurants?
Rob, why don't you?
You do hear that. You have restaurants, they lost their bar crowd because you can't sit at a bar. People can't stay past 10 o'clock, so they're not drinking as much. A lot of people just aren't coming out. Takeout and delivery is not where the bills are going to be paid. It's going to be in people coming in and sitting down. And alcohol is the big markup. It's the truth. Alcohol is the biggest markup in our industry outside of like pizza. It's all in alcohol. So to lose that, that's where your profit is. I sell food. I sell high-end food. High-end food is expensive. It's not cheap. And believe it or not, you really don't make money off of it. Yes, you pay the staff, you pay the rent, you keep the lights on, I pay my insurance. And then really it's the alcohol sales that creates any sort of a profit or money when you have to buy new things or make improvement and all that kind of stuff. And, what's scary right now is I don't know if there was, and Pam, you might know better than me, if there was true guidance on what we're allowed to do as far as liquor sales.
That's the question that Joe Corrado's just asking. He wants to know, are restaurants still allowed to sell cocktails or a bottle of wine to go?
Yes, it's the way that the state is saying that they're helping businesses. Okay. But I will tell you this, again, it upsets the supply and demand chain. Like if I'm buying liquor from Massimo at Vinum, that means I'm not buying it from my neighborhood liquor store. You know, it's shifting the supply and demand. You know, that's not what we need right now, in my opinion. But what I would suggest going forward, and I do have to jump off in a minute, is it is very important to be loud in this environment. You know, I think that, you know, generally speaking, restaurant owners are afraid of retribution, and I totally get that. And when they do speak to me, you know, sometimes they don't want to give their names. I'm fine with that. I just need to know what people are thinking. And I do feel that I give restaurants a voice, you know, in between my column and whatever we're doing in the advance. I mean, this is it. You know, the reason why the governor hates Staten Island, or seems to hate Staten Island, is because we're very vocal. And we're not stepping down. So I would strongly suggest speaking to me, if you don't mind, or whatever press outlet, but also, you know, write letters. I mean, it works. It really does. I mean, Pedro from Il Sogno restaurant, I didn't realize Il Sogno meant dream, actually, in Italian. I didn't realize that. But that's his dream. This man came from Peru. He worked his whole life in the food business. And he's just like, doesn't even know how to verbalize how devastated he is. He's going to lose everything very soon. And I, you know, spoke to him. I'm like, you really have to, you know, write a letter. And he did. He wrote the letter. And I actually took the letter. I not only put it in my column, but I also sent it to my rep from the governor's office. You know, so I will probably never hear back from them. But at least, you know, I gave the guy a voice. So anyway, my point is that if you could, you know, keep in touch, I really appreciate it. It can only help us in the end. So
you've been doing a lot of good for these restaurants too, Pam, helping them, you know, get their message out and get their word out on who's delivering and who's not delivering and where they can order from. And it's a community service. I definitely appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Everybody should jump on every day at 9 a.m. Right, Pam? You're live on Facebook, and Pam gives us all the updates on what's going on in the restaurants and gives restaurant owners an opportunity to tell their story to her and to everyone else. So, Pam, before you jump, anything special that we should know that's going on in support of restaurants, or any other advice you have? I know that there was some giving or some donations being made. Wasn't it Jimmy Max?
A lot going on. There's something called lots of things. One of them is Staten Islanders for Staten Island. It is a program that is intended to, it might be a little too late to completely get the full advantage of this, but basically you register with Staten Islanders for Staten Islanders through Eden 2 or the Pride Center. They want to give back to all the people who have supported them, and mainly that's the restaurant community. And what they'll do is you basically, anybody can go and buy a meal package from a participating restaurant or their favorite restaurant. It doesn't have to be a participating restaurant. That voucher gets picked up, and essentially the restaurant would bring the food to like Project Hospitality, and the food gets distributed from there. It's just a way of, it literally the money goes right to the restaurant owner, and they're hoping that, you know, like King's Arms or whomever gets, you know, 20 to 30 orders of that kind of thing. But also a reader suggested buying gift certificates. You know, it might be a little risky because some people don't know what their future is, but you know, I would imagine it's like basically a short-term loan. Things like that. I mean, just eating out by taking out is so important. It keeps the staff moving. It keeps the inventory moving. It keeps the supply chain moving. I mean, it is so important that we like tap on these restaurants constantly. But that's my thought.
That's great words. Thank you so much, Pam Sylvester, for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
We're going to continue now with Rob DeLuca. And so Rob, tell us, you know, what is, you know, moving forward, what do we need to do to support IROAR and to support what you're doing? I know you have a lawsuit. You know, where are we with that? I mean, that lawsuit was supposed to be to open at 50% capacity. Yeah. What's happening with that?
So there's multiple lawsuits out right now. Lawsuit number one was the 50% capacity lawsuit. New York City restaurants, we were hoping to open, you know, at 50% capacity indoors. We filed that in September, right after Labor Day. The day after we announced the lawsuit outside the courthouse, Cuomo and the governor's office, you know, buckled and said, okay, we'll give you 25%. The lawsuit was still ongoing, got in front of a Staten Island judge. in October, towards the end of October. The judge didn't feel it was his place to make a ruling or overturn any executive orders. Now, if you know anything about politics and government and politics, it's that you have three branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. And it actually is the judge's job to overturn an executive order that they don't agree with, or an executive order that they feel is unconstitutional and is violating of people's rights, which Governor Cuomo's his orders are. We have the right to earn a living. We have the right to be open. Yes, at a safe capacity and a responsible capacity. Nobody's saying everybody go to a bar, 100 people stuffed inside a little room, shoulder to shoulder, with no masks on, or have a restaurant operate at 100% capacity, tables 6 inches or a foot apart, packed to the gills. But give us a chance, because you're not giving us any money. So give us a chance to try to pay our bills, make a little bit of a living for ourselves, and have our employees work. That's all we're really asking for. So that lawsuit, it's still there. It's supposed to go in front of another judge in January. There's also a lawsuit out there for reparations and damages, and that's for restaurants and all the money that was lost due to the shutdowns. That was just filed last week. And now this week, as the attorney Lou Gerolino said last night on Tucker Carlson, we have another lawsuit that has been filed, and that's to put a restraining order on Governor Cuomo's executive order, which is basically saying we're asking a judge to hold off on Cuomo's executive order and let us operate until the state can prove that indoor dining or restaurants are the cause of the spread. Now, why this was so important is last week in California, a certain judge did rule this way. So where you have a more liberal state like California, which is probably the most liberal state, you hope to be able to pass the same type of ruling here in New York State, where you could say, hey, listen, if you want the restaurants to open at 25% or 50%, okay, obviously not 100%, but give them something until you can prove that indoor dining or restaurants are the cause of this. Which we all watched, Governor Cuomo's press conference last week, and only 1.43% of cases are traced back to restaurants and bars. And that's not even necessarily just, only indoor dining. That could be indoor or outdoor, it could be anything. But restaurants and bars, if we're only contributing 1.43%, it's really not, it's not our industry's fault. It's not.
Right.
It's not our industry's fault. I'm happy to say that. I'm not saying that, people shouldn't be careful, because I think that they should be. If you're uncomfortable, wear a mask. I think there is a certain way to operate in these difficult times. But it's not our fault. It never was. We were all lied to about it. And the proof is in the numbers. And New York's supposed to follow the science. Well, the science doesn't say restaurants should be closed. And New York's supposed to follow the numbers. Well, the numbers don't say that restaurants should be closed. We're seeing that indoor gatherings are the big spreader. And I'm going to tell you from my personal experience is every weekend, Friday and Saturday, I have massive delivery and pickup orders going out that are anywhere between $400 and $800 an order. That's on a takeout order.
Yeah.
People are gathering in their house with 15, 20, 25 people to put together a takeout order like that of just like appetizers. So they're getting together. You're just not letting us, make the living off of it.
It's insanity that they can be so myopic and not recognize that human beings will be human beings, and we're social, and we're going to find ways to get together in that they can't be flexible while they're watching the restaurant business, the restaurateurs be flexible, and almost demanding that they be flexible is mind-boggling to me. And they say follow the science. We know that the everybody is saying that restaurants do not spread, is not the cause of the COVID spread. But to me, Rob, and this is very personal, I'm not saying that anybody here said it except for me, but to me, telling people to stay home is almost tantamount to him sending the nursing home patients back to the nursing home.
I agree with that. I do agree.
I mean, he was wrong then when he did it, and he didn't understand what was going on, and he claims that now. Well, I didn't have enough information. Well, you have the information now. You know that people want to gather. So why are you telling them they can't gather in restaurants where it's much safer, and instead are gathering at homes? At least in restaurants, you have control. At least in restaurants, you could say 4 to a table. And what I also don't understand is, why is a tent with no air filtration okay? But the buildings, which all of you have terrific HVAC systems, you have to, because of fire and all kinds of regulations. Why wouldn't he prefer to have people gather 4 to a table in a building where there's an excellent HVAC system?
That could even be upgraded further. I don't know if you see on the screen what I put up on the screen here, but Rob, they're winning these lawsuits all over the country. So I have a lot of hope for IROAR. I think you guys are I think your stop order is a really great idea. And, you're not alone. Pennsylvania, there's been case after case that has made it through the courts. And these are after fines have been issued.
Yeah.
So I think, you're in good shape. Let's keep our fingers crossed for you.
Yeah, I think we have a good shot at this. And to touch on your point about our HVAC systems, they have to pass a lot of tests here in New York State and New York City. So you're talking about some of the best systems in the world. All of us had to upgrade our systems in September to have to be able to sit indoors. I put in iWave purifiers, which is supposed to kill 99% of all viruses and bacteria. And these things were not cheap. I have 3 units on the roof of the restaurant. So I had to buy 3. You're talking about a $5,000 investment after installation, And now they said you have to install it because it makes the air safe. But now you're telling me the air is not safe. It doesn't make any sense. And to touch on the nursing home scandal, you can't tell me a guy who killed 10,000 nonnas is a person we should be listening to, at this point. And we all saw, what came out about him over the weekend, which was the restaurant's little ha-ha to say, you're not perfect either. This is definitely not someone, we see that the governor has gone full dictator. He really doesn't care about anything. He thinks he's right all the time, and he doesn't have to be right all the time. It's okay to be wrong in life. I wake up every day and I'm wrong, or I make mistakes, and it happens. I'm human. I'm not perfect. It's okay for a governor to make mistakes. Just, say that you did it, or make the amendments you have to make, and it's fine. But I'm always right. Listen to me. Don't question anything I tell you. You do this, you don't do this. I'm going to pick and choose, what happens in my state and what doesn't. And it's really become unfair. It's unconstitutional. It's un-American. And it's not good for anybody. Like Pam brought up in the supply chain, and the problems we're having in the restaurant business, which they've gotten better now, but they were terrible in April and May with the meat factories and all stuff. It was a lot to deal with. You had trouble getting things. You ordered stuff. You didn't know what was going to show up.
Right.
I couldn't get water bottles. At the beginning of the pandemic, when we knew there was going to be a shortage, I bought, this is funny, I bought through the distributors toilet paper, paper towels, and water bottles for all my employees. For all of them, because we're in the restaurant sometimes 12-hour days. Nobody has time to run here and there. There's shortages, people waiting on lines. I ordered everything in the beginning for them. And, the first couple of weeks we were just loading up on stuff, and I gave it all out to them, just to, to take it. I'm trying to take care of my employees. And as we tried to order like a month in, I couldn't even get water bottles.
That's amazing. And just what you just said shows the foresight of a business person, right? Business people can plan ahead, and they do. That's what makes them successful. Is not only did you plan for yourself but you did for your employees, because you knew that a happy employee is going to be a more productive worker. But somehow or another, our elected officials who don't have that experience, that small business experience, are making decisions for us, and they're literally just destroying us because of their lack of knowledge and their refusal to have input.
It's in the name of science, right? And here's the interesting thing that people really don't realize about science. Science is not a fact. Science is a consensus. It's when a series of experts agree on something. It's very rarely 100% in any case, and Neil deGrasse Tyson is the one who taught me that, right? So you gotta take everything with a grain of salt. They're reacting to things they're unsure of, but my problem is they're acting like it's matter of fact, right? That if restaurants are open, COVID will spread more without, like Rob said, and what this lawsuit's going to address, without fact. And I don't want to ignore Nick Ferraro. Nick said, "Why don't you get a doctor on here?" Was one of his comments, and I think you're right. At some point, Letitia, we should try to get a medical expert.
Nick works for me.
What?
Works for me.
Oh, do you
Does
really?
he work for you? He pokes me in the ribs on a regular basis now.
Nick and I are very good friends for about 10, 11 years. We worked in the restaurant business together. He is a biologist. He's got his master's degree in chemistry, biology. I'm not sure exactly what they're all in. Very smart guy, teacher at St. Joseph by the Sea, educated in this kind of stuff. Also a restaurant employee who feels that restaurants should be open to a certain capacity and can open safely and responsibly.
Yeah, St. Joseph by the Sea alumni.
And he's definitely a rib poker.
Yeah, he's definitely right. He's got the radar on me. He pokes me in the ribs regularly. But yeah, I mean, Nick and I talked about that. Why not get a medical expert? I will. The thing is, Nick, it's just because somebody is an expert doesn't mean that they necessarily have all the information, because I have a biologist friend who's actually studying the virus. I have a nurse who we've had on before. I've had several nurses on before. I have, as a matter of fact, Jennifer Cuevas is here with us, and she is a mental health expert. And everybody does, they don't all agree on what should be done. So that when you have a group of people that don't agree, I am one to believe that if the small business community is the backbone of America. We balance our country and states' budgets on their backs, and we expect that they are going to take care of their customers, because if they don't, their customers don't return, and then therefore there is no business, and therefore there is no taxes. So when
it's their neighbor too. It's their neighbor. It's not some corporate entity. They know each other usually.
Right. So if we know, if nobody has a real handle on what to do with small business, why don't we let the small business owner have the information and then do what they need to do to keep their customers safe? And stop with this 25%, 50% outdoor, indoor tents. These are arbitrary rules that don't fit for everybody, and they shouldn't be given to everybody, especially that we don't have a legislature fighting for anybody. These rules are being made in a vacuum by one person. So I went on a little bit there.
One person, one party, and that's why the system needs to be balanced. That's why we have two parties. But unfortunately, in New York State, we don't have that. We have a bulldog legislature that whatever he says gets passed. I've never seen them buck Cuomo once.
So Rob, what do you want to leave us with? I know you have to get going. What do you want to tell our viewers?
So yeah, I do have to get going. I got to run to the restaurant. All those catering orders are coming in. I just realized we have a comment section. I did not see that. So yeah, I had the private chat section up, but I did not see the comment section. So I would like to thank everybody who commented, for all your comments. Anybody who has showed support to DeLucas, thank you so much. I love my wonderful customers, and you all have been so fantastic to myself and my staff since the day we opened, and especially since the pandemic has come back. We are going to continue fighting as IRAW. The restaurant owners are not giving up. We're going to get ourselves open one way or another. This is going to happen. The fight continues. And if you need your catering orders, try to put them in by this weekend, because it's getting pretty busy. And like I said, I'm gonna keep the fights in me. I'll keep pushing. I know the other restaurant owners who are big parts of IRAW are gonna keep pushing. That's why DeLucas' decision is to remain open all winter long with the heated tents, continue to serve the community, keep our employees working. We will have takeout and delivery. I'm sure there's going to be menu changes for certain things for the new year. So some exciting things to look forward to as well. And I just wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a very happy and healthy New Year. Stay safe. George and Letitia, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure doing the show. George, I love the T-shirt. I meant to say that when I first got on. Absolutely love it. And love the repping of the American flag behind you.
Thank you. Rob, just quickly, do you do the 7 fishes? Can we get the 7 fishes at your restaurant?
So I do the 7 fishes at my house. We don't actually have all the right 7 fishes because there is a specific 7 fishes of how it goes. My house probably has like 12 fishes, which is 2 more than Cuomo would allow at a. But they are not all the proper 7 fishes.
Okay, but if we want to order for Christmas, order from Rob.
Catering menus are all online at DeLucasItalian.com for small and large gatherings.
Thank you, Rob. You have a great weekend. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Best Italian restaurant on Staten Island, in my opinion. It's consistently perfect every time I go. I go there often. I definitely recommend you visit DeLuca's in Tauntonville. It's a gem in Staten Island.
It truly is, and my restaurant was not far from DeLuca's. It was on Amboy Road, just in Pleasant Plains, Audition Supper Club. And I can tell you that what I loved about Auditions was that everybody was from the neighborhood and there were regulars. And so you'd always see somebody you knew at the bar in the restaurant. And DeLuca's is exactly the same way. When you walk in there, you feel like you're visiting Nona, and the family is there on Sunday. And the food is exquisite. It truly, truly is. And, I give Rob a lot of credit. He's a young man who, really has his hands and mind wrapped around this restaurant business, and it's not an easy business. I mean, I was fortunate. I sold my business. I didn't go out of business, but most restaurants fail. And Rob has made it through this pandemic with flying colors. And for a young guy, that's interesting. And so, and now he's working on behalf of other small businesses. So that's fantastic. So we have a lot of people.
Can I slip a shameless plug in here before we continue on? We're trying to get our podcast out there, so you guys could be a help to us. And a few ways that you can help us out and kind of get our podcast up is visit us and watch us on YouTube, or visit us and watch us on Rumble. Now, Rumble, we don't go live on Rumble, so the show will go up a day later. But it's a great archive of every show we've had. And this money gets monetized, which we will put back into this podcast to get better guests and make the show better. So, the address for Rumble's going across the bottom. Go to YouTube, The Vaughn Agency in YouTube. And we live stream there every Wednesday as well as Facebook. So check us out there. Thanks. I'm done with my plug.
George, I just had an idea. So since we're just starting up on Rumble, what if, and I didn't even ask him beforehand, so I'm going to put him on the spot. What if we do get monetized and the first 3 months we donate to the restaurant industry?
1,000%.
Okay.
1,000%.
Right.
I would do that for longer than 3 months.
Okay, let's do it until the restaurants are back in business the way they're supposed to be. So everybody like us on YouTube, share, tell your friends to like us on YouTube, and all the money that's raised off of Rumble, we will give right back to the restaurant industry and their employees, and just help them out until they can get back on their feet. So George, yesterday I was walking on Newdorp Lane, and I was told by Mike Snyder of Snyder Realty that there were sheriffs, going in and out of businesses, and that I should come down there right away. I've now become like the on the scene reporter for everything that goes on in Staten Island. So I get news tips. It's very interesting. I don't know if I'm the on the scene reporter or the, borough presidential candidate, and they think that I can fix things immediately. But either way, I get the news tips, and off I ran. And so, there was a group of inspectors on Newdorp Lane, and you can see them there. They were gathered outside of Brioso. And they were very, very nice, nice gentlemen, when I asked them what they were doing, and you could see my live video stream on my Facebook page, they told me they were handing out COVID information to businesses to help them, reopen after COVID, or or get through COVID without getting sick or losing any business. But what I noticed about them is they were walking. There were two groups, about 6 in each group, on both sides of the street, and they were walking very closely together. They all had masks on, walking very closely together. Some smoking, as they walked, so they picked up their mask, and then they go into the restaurant or the real estate or the donut shop or the piece of cake, even Scott Levito. They were headed towards Scott Levito's gallery. Scott was ready for them, and they just walked past. But my thought was, this is exactly what the mayor says we're not supposed to do, right? We're supposed to stay home as much as possible, away from human contact. We can't go to restaurants. When we shop, we have to wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart, shop, and then go back home. Be careful at work. But these guys were walking in little clusters and talking closely with each other, and they were going from place to place, talking to owners, interacting with customers. And it dawned on me, do these guys get daily tests? Do they have to quarantine after they visit so many businesses and come in contact with so many people? Aren't they doing exactly what we're not supposed to be doing? Why didn't de Blasio, if he wanted if he wanted small businesses to have the information that was being handed out, and what it was a flyer, why didn't he mail it? Like they did the absentee ballots. I mean, the ballots were, it was okay to mail our ballots. Why wouldn't he mail those flyers?
Well, because they're probably also doing enforcement, and they don't want to say they're coming out there to give fines. They don't want them to get attacked and poked when they're in the street. That's my guess, right? It's a guess. I'm not an expert.
Well, it's a guess. And when I did have a call this morning from somebody who said that one of the merchants was issued a fine for something or another. And so, don't bullshit us and say that you're out there trying
My mother used to do that crap to me when I was a little kid. I mean, that's what it feels like. We're little kids.
I mean, you're there and you're think about what they were doing. The businesses are opened for such a short time. People are hearing that we might all have to shut down soon again. So right in the middle of Christmas shopping season, Hanukkah shopping season, right? So they're going in New Dorp Lane, the busiest shopping area other than Forest Avenue and some parts of Victory Boulevard, in Staten Island. And they're walking up and down, going in and out of businesses. And to me, that is despicable. And frankly, I would like the mayor to give us the data about how often these men and women are tested, how often they have to go out, how many people they see in a day, because that transmittal rate, we need to track, right? That's what he wants us to do. We got to track. So how do we know they're not actually bringing COVID into the business and, infecting customers that will later on have to shut down the business?
Maybe we need to have Nick on. Nick Ferraro, he made a point here. I don't want to ignore it. Maybe we do need to get someone on to explain this a little bit better for everybody. But the scientific method is meant to be objective and excludes human bias. I agree. It should exclude human bias. It is the global collaboration of scientific discovery that supports the objective truth. So, but they haven't shown us this global collaboration locally here. They haven't shown us the science on why restaurants are closed. They said in one breath, Nick, they said restaurants, it seems to, with our data, is only 1 point, you put it up there, 1 point something percent, 1.3%, 4.3% of the spread rate. So they're certainly not the big spreader of COVID, but we're closing them. So I don't see them paying attention to science, because you're in one breath you're saying it's not the spreader, and I'd love someone else to be able to explain that. So we need to find ourselves a scientist that's willing to jump on and really dig into that.
I think if Nick is willing to come on, we'd love to have him on. And I also have my biologist friend who is actually studying the virus, and we can have them both on. But something I want to say, Nick, I'm sorry, but Pluto was a planet for a long time. Now it's not a planet. I go back to that every time. Though,
Nick, come on. I'm going to send.
Science is, theory. It's an accepted theory, theoretical theory, and and things change. We learn all the time that things change and opinions change. There's no exacts in the world. So Nick, you know how to get hold of me, inbox me. We'd love to have you on. We'll see if we can put a show together for Wednesday, and we can talk about the science behind all of this stuff that's going on. Because frankly, I think that we can't survive much more of this. The small business industry cannot survive. Small businesses can't survive much more of the ineptitude of our leadership. We cannot continue to operate in a vacuum without discourse and conversation. People are at their top of their frustration level. People are at the top of their anxiety level, and they're at the bottom of their bank account. And it's not going to get any better. It's not, nothing on the horizon says
the ramifications aren't being considered into the morbidity rate and all of this. They're isolating and saying COVID has this X morbidity rate, but there's what's the word I'm looking for? There's shrapnel effect to COVID, and the shrapnel effect is the guy who says, you know what, I can't take this anymore. I'm bored out of my mind. Let me do another hot shot of heroin. I can't take being alone anymore. Let me jump off a bridge, or let me turn to alcohol. And I know these sound extreme, but it's a factor, and it's something that we need to really consider. There's the long-term effects of COVID. There's the long-term effects of this pandemic that no one really understands how deep it can be. The suicide rate is climbing at rapid numbers, especially amongst kids. So we have to pay attention to that data and say, well, you know what? There's X number of, and this is going to sound too dry and cold, but X number of people are dying for secondary or comorbidity of COVID, activities or effects. And how much is that? And now maybe we should open because of that. I don't know if that made sense or not. It
did make sense. So I'm going to address Samuel Schiff's comment that the busiest shopping time of the year sounds like the perfect time to make sure people are complying with the guidelines. You know what, Samuel? I'm tired of living in a nanny state. You give me the guidelines and I'll follow the guidelines. But, to think that, de Blasio's quickly deputized TLC inspector or a city worker who is not trained for health inspections or anything else, and they got 6 hours of training and said, go out there, to believe that they would have the inherent knowledge to know what's right, what's wrong. That is just, in my opinion, it's just moronic. It's moronic and it's insulting, because the small business owners have invested their entire life savings into opening a business. They have trained, they have gotten expert advice, they hire staff, they do what has to be done so that they can provide a service and employ other people. We don't need to do this, Samuel Schiff. Small businesses don't need to have this aggravation in New York City. We can uproot of all the people in New York. The small business community is the easiest community to leave, because if they have no ties. If they don't have any more business, they have no further ties to the community. So why should they remain? That is the most nonsensical thing ever, that government would challenge small business to stay or leave. Because if there's no reason to stay, Why would we? Now, if you're a police officer or a nurse, or you're working for the city, or you're getting, some sort of city compensation,
You're
you
chained here.
have to stay.
You're chained here, right?
Yeah, you're chained here. Okay. But small business owners, we're the ones that could flee easiestly. So I challenge you, Samuel, to recognize that harassing the small business community is not a smart thing to do for New York City, state, or Staten Island's future. And I think that it's about time that de Blasio and Cuomo also recognize that. But now that I got myself all crazy, George, I think we're over our time,
I just
and
want to get this comment up
yeah.
so Gina sees it. Definitely made sense, George. Gina, it makes sense sometimes. Once in a while.
Well, you make sense a lot of the times. All right. Well, so Nick, email George, and we'll tee you up for next Wednesday, and we'll talk about the biology and the science behind COVID and the restaurant closures. George, you have a great rest of the day. We're in 2 different locations. I'm going to do an interview with Russian television in a few minutes.
I am going to go get groceries in case I'm snowed in for 2 days, and then I'll be back online.
Okay, everybody, please be safe out there. Don't drive if you don't have to. Listen, we're pretty good with this lockdown stuff now, so stay in, stay safe. Colleen, I hope mom's doing okay. And a big shout out to my mom, who I know joined us earlier, and to all of you. Thank you, and please remember, like us and subscribe to YouTube, and all the money that we raise off of Rumble will go to the restaurant workers and the restaurant industry. So till next Wednesday, see y'all then.
Thank you, guys.